Yes, team, welcome back to another episode of the High Performance Coach podcast and the 2024 end of year business and life insights and review. I spent the last couple of days putting together 10 of my biggest takeaways from this year through either my lived experiences or the lessons that I've learned from others. And it's so interesting when you just reflect back, you look at your social media posts, you look at the notes in your phone, you look at your journal, you look at wherever it is that you now collate all of your thoughts, your ideas, and you put pen to paper. And you look at the lessons, sometimes the throwaway comments or notes that you've now made that don't necessarily mean anything in the moment. But when you actually reread them, when you're in a slightly different space and place, it actually makes you appreciate so much. And not only that, it actually allows you to take something slightly different because you're now in a different place in your life. So I've distilled them down into 10 key points. I think I could have done a hell of a lot more, but hopefully you're going to find some of these useful. And I want to continue to make sure these are going to be front and center for me that I carry forth going into 2025. So, number one, this is something that I took from Mr. Martin Rooney at the ECA summit that I was speaking at. And one thing that he said that really landed incredibly powerfully for me was to get good opportunities, you've got to be good enough for the opportunity. To get good opportunities, you've got to be good enough for the opportunity. Think about what it is that you want to be able to attain, achieve, have, do, be in 2025. The clients that you want to work with, the stages you may want to speak on, the team that you want to build, the life that you want to live, the holidays that you want to go on, the networking access and opportunities, maybe the podcast, the email, whatever it is, and reverse engineer that and think about what are the skills that I need to develop, what are the behaviors that I need to embody, what are the attributes that I know that I need to have in order for me to be the type of person that now gets those things, does those things, and has those things. Somebody that now becomes a value, somebody that now is an asset. And recognizing, appreciating that if you don't have certain opportunities just yet and they're aspirations, goals, and targets that you want to have, as always, the results are in the wait. The lead indicator is always the behavior. The lagging indicator will be the result that you get as a byproduct. And that requires a hell of a lot of patience. And it requires you to work so much harder in private than you do in public. It requires you to develop skills and work on yourself more so than anything else. And sometimes you'll think that you're doing things, you're developing skills that will feel as though that they're pointless. They don't have any relevance just now. But when you then connect the dots looking backwards, it makes you appreciate how profound those have been, but you haven't been able to necessarily utilize those in the moment. So, a perfect example of this could be me speaking to you on a podcast. It could be me writing an email. It could be me writing content. It could be me on sales calls, coaching calls. It could be studying marketing, sales, lead generation, delivery, systems, onboarding, finance, whatever. And you sometimes think like, how is this relevant? I'm not necessarily utilizing this just now. This maybe doesn't make sense to me. Or actually, do you know what? I've just spent an hour writing this piece of content, this piece of copy, or editing this video or whatever. And you just feel as though it's a waste of time. But in hindsight, when you actually reflect back, you appreciate that that time that you spent sharpening the blade and improving those skills have now allowed you then to articulate, communicate, convey, or deliver what it is that you do in a certain way that then obviously allows you to open new doors because you can do it with more efficiency, you can do it with more competence, you can do it with more confidence, and you can do it in a way that then becomes incredibly valuable. So I have huge aspirations of the opportunities that I want to be able to create moving into 25. And it can sometimes be frustrating when you're not there yet. But I think it's appreciating that thought process that Martin conveyed, which is just acknowledging, okay, if I want to have these opportunities, who do I need to be? What do I need to let go of? What skills do I need to learn? What do I need to step into? And then also, what courage do I need to show? That now might be putting yourself in a certain room. That might be now having that conversation, reaching out to that person that maybe you don't feel confident enough to initially, and realizing that feeling an imposter is part of the process, and that's actually something you want to be actively seeking. You create your own luck, and it's that forced evolution that you then also go through, which I think is huge. So that for me was probably one of, if not the biggest takeaway that I took. Whenever I think about where I want to be, what I want to have, it's actually also being okay with knowing that you're maybe not good enough yet. You're not good enough to work with that caliber of client, or to work and employ that team member, or to speak on that stage, or to get paid a certain amount, whatever it might be. And actually sitting with that, owning that, and then going, right, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? What are the steps I need to take? And then what are the attributes and behaviors that I now know that I want to be able to embody and continue to build upon, so I can give myself the greatest opportunity to put all of my chips into that arena so that I can give myself the greatest chance. Number two, one of the most attractive qualities and traits of an individual that I don't necessarily think gets appreciated anywhere near enough is passion. Think about when you first got into the industry. Think about when you first started fitness, coaching, your own fat loss journey, transformation journey, whatever it now might potentially be. Think about the obsession, the love, the enjoyment, the real presence that you brought to what it was that you did. And think about the passion that you have just now. Where are you spending your time? What are you watching? What are you learning? What are you listening to? What would you just do for fun? What would you do for free? And are you really bringing that to the marketplace? Are you bringing that to your conversations? Are you bringing that to your content? Having that level of energy and I think that level of passion around something is such an attractive quality that will bring people towards you. Think about when you've been at dinner, or think about when you've been sat with a friend or a family member, or even you've been watching something and you don't really have any interest in what it is that they're doing. And you maybe don't really know what it's about, and you have very little depth or understanding around even the skills that are required, or even actually potentially the rules of the game. But the way in which they speak about it, it draws you in, it pulls you in, it makes you feel a certain way. And even though it's not something that you're innately bothered about, it makes you curious. And that then for you, I think, makes you appreciate that human being even more so. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And in a world of noise, in a world of information, and in a noise of everybody competing with one another for space, it's not necessarily just the information that you're now collecting and also now putting up to the world, but it's the way in which you deliver it, which is going to be the real glue that will pull and bring far more people towards you, and will engage far more people, and will make people feel a certain way, which I think will be one of the most powerful things that you can own and you can do in the new year. If you want to now be able to have attention, and you want to be able to build relationships, build rapport, and build trust with the marketplace, who right now are skeptical, busy, and lacking more trust than ever. So what are you passionate about? Are you really talking about that? And are you really bringing that to the marketplace? And are you allowing yourself to express yourself in a way and being proud of actually the things that you love, that you're excited about, that maybe you don't necessarily share, because they're the pieces that will connect the right types of people towards you. Number three, this was something that I wrote down in this exact journal. We had just traveled back from Portugal to Scotland at the start of 2024. We spent 2 months in Spain. We then came to Portugal to find a place to live. And we then headed home on the 4 days. And the last 2 years, we've actually traveled back from Europe back to Scotland. And we've almost been out of sorts for a little while, because we've not been able to fully relax at Christmas. And then also it's taken us a little while to get back into sync, because we've had to readjust to our environment and different bits and pieces. And this is the first year we haven't had to do that. So I didn't actually write down like who it was that I needed to be, who it was that I wanted to embody, what were the behaviors that I now wanted to be able to focus on, what did I need to let go of, until actually the second week in January. And I reread it a couple of weeks ago, just as I was flicking through my diary, actually looking for some of the lessons and insights that I was going to share. And one thing that really stood out for me was I wrote down, if you think and behave like you did in 2023, you know that you'll progress and you'll grow, but not to the level and not to the potential that you know that you're capable of. And out of 3 to 4 pages of writing, that was the biggest thing that stood out for me. And a couple of pieces on that. Number one, I brought myself back to that moment when I wrote that. And it made me realize and appreciate that I knew and had confidence and backing in myself that we would grow, that we would progress, that we would continue to move forwards, we would continue to move the needle in the metrics in the areas that we knew that we wanted to. And that could be great. But there was also something missing. And I knew that if we really wanted to be able to accomplish and achieve and access the levels that I knew that we wanted to be able to step into, both me personally and also professionally, that was going to require a different level of thinking. It was going to require a different level of behavior. And it was going to also require me actually letting go. and changing a lot of what I believe about myself and what it was that I've now been able to do for me to be able to get from nothing and no business to now something. And once again, being able to actually own that and being okay with acknowledging that in order for me to be able to access that next level, in order for me to be able to have the business, have the life, work with the clients, have and generate the level of results that we know that we want to, develop and continue to lead and evolve the team, there were some things that I needed to change about me, my thought process, my beliefs that I knew were keeping me safe. And although we were growing, we were progressing, we were moving forwards, we were on an upward trajectory, all of the markers externally were pointing in the right direction. I just knew that internally, I almost had this handbrake on that wasn't really allowing me to really step in. And I want you to think about that moving into the new year. If you continue to think and behave like you have done over the course of this year, do you get to where you want to go? Do you allow yourself to build and create what it is that you know that you have the potential to do so? What is it that you need to let go of? Where do you need to take the handbrake off? What is it you need to step into? And just appreciating that it's scary, it's uncertain. You don't know what the outcomes are going to be, and it's easy just to resort and revolve back into what feels comfortable because that's got you from A to B. But that doesn't allow you then to have everything that you want. And one great frame, and I'm going to share this in a point later on, but I'll bring it forward just now, and I took this from Alan Soltanek, was this fear of loss. By losing, what do you gain? Because whenever you're thinking about growing, one of the biggest factors that will inhibit and stop you from being able to do that is the fear of loss and what it is that you're now going to lose by stepping in to this next version of you and letting go of some of the behaviors that have potentially served you but now no longer are going to serve you to be able to access the levels that you now know that you want to. Number 4, this has really been the mission, the message, and every single thing that I stand for. And that's building a business your way is the ultimate pick and mix. I've seen, having been in the industry since 2010, online since 2014, I've been through a whole host of different evolutions. I've seen tens of thousands of coaches. I've seen some thrive, some survive, some come and go, some have short-term success and then now leave, and other people who've gone to continue to go to completely different heights who are completely transforming and changing the trajectory of the industry. And one thing that's always been a common denominator is like, you have to do it this way. Here is the path of success. Here is the process. And this is what I've done. And this is what you need to do. And whilst there's a lot of truth in that, and whilst success leaves clues, and whilst one of the greatest leverage points that you have is to be able to learn through others who have been where you've been, following their exact footsteps, doing exactly what they've done, and following their exact methodology and process doesn't necessarily align to you, doesn't necessarily align to your values, doesn't necessarily align to how you want to live, how you want to communicate, how you want to do things, doesn't align to your skills and also your strengths. And I want you to think about a time where you followed somebody else's advice who was successful, who was further ahead than you, and your intuition and your instinct told you that it wasn't the right thing, but you followed it through anyway. And what happened? Did you get the result that you were looking for? And how did you feel? And the biggest message that we have inside the High Performance Coach is helping you build a highly profitable business by working with customers that you love your way. Understanding, how do you want to do things? What are your highest values? What are your strengths? What's your kryptonite? How do you want to market? How do you want to convey your message? How do you want to generate leads? What do you want your sales process to now look like? Your onboarding, your delivery, your model, your price point, the way in which you now structure the entirety of your business ecosystem and also your life, and being able to reverse engineer that around you and allowing you to be in the driving seat. So instead of now following the path of this is exactly what you need to do, of course, there's going to be processes, frameworks, principles that are going to be proven. But how can you then pick and choose the best bits that now work with you? Of course, there's going to be things that you don't want to do. There's going to be elements and skills that you're going to have to develop. And there's still going to be times that you're going to have to do a lot of things that don't necessarily light you up, align and excite you. I had a great thing, I think it was Elon Musk talking about like businesses like looking into the abyss and eating glass. And Gary Vaynerchuk also shared on a reel a little while ago going into the office every single day, just now knowing that you're just going to be faced with a ton of problems and just normalizing that and appreciating that that is business. You're in the problem solving game. But behind all of that, you've got to be able to have a business that has a heartbeat that now is aligned to you, so that you can remove as much friction, you can remove as many limiting factors as possible to give you the greatest chance to be as consistent as possible and allow you to embody and embrace your greatest strengths and what it is that you now really want to be able to create. And that takes trust, that takes courage, and that takes you now having confidence in yourself, because that now means that you have to be able to back yourself, and you're not just going to be a passenger, and you're not just going to follow this model that's now going to take you from A to B. And if that's what you want to do, then great. But the people that we see now more and more and more that are having the greatest impact, the greatest influence, and are really feeling proud and aligned and are creating something that they love and can bring more energy to it, that are then having a greater amount of fulfillment and therefore making a greater amount of impact and also profit, are the ones who are now beating to their own drum. And our goal, our role, and our responsibility is to be able to give you the framework, the platform, and the different opportunities to then be able to look at what are the pieces of the puzzle that we now need to put together that now allow you to really present the best version of that. And recognizing and appreciating that there is no one single way to be able to get to where it is that you want to be able to go. But that requires you to be able to pick the £5 note up off the floor and own what it is that you want to be able to do, and then have the confidence and the courage to be able to take that first step. So building a business your way is the ultimate business pick and mix that we really want more coaches to be able to embody, regardless of the level that you're now at. And giving yourself permission to be able to go and build a business your way gives you a sense of freedom and a feeling like no other. Number 5, how far can somebody go into your world at this present moment in time? There's of course been the big rise in virality, and how can you get as much attention as possible, and how can you grow your audience? And volume and being able to get attention is of course one of the most greatest pieces that you now have as a business owner that you should absolutely now be working on. That level of awareness around who you are, what you do, your story, who you're speaking to, what you sell, and the skill of grabbing attention is going to be an important piece of the puzzle. But in an industry and in an environment and in an economy just now where people are lacking trust, they're skeptical, they're busier than ever, they've had their fingers burned, and there's so much noise, there's got to be so much more depth above and beyond just that awareness piece. How far can somebody go into your world without them even speaking to you, working with you? How long can they spend listening to you, watching you, consuming your content, taking pieces of what it is that you now do, plugging it into their life that is actually having a profound impact, and giving them the opportunity to go into your ecosystem? The more that you can now do that going into 25, the bigger the pipeline that you will build and the better quality of client that you will now attract, because they will have a far greater sense of depth, awareness, safety, and also trust to you, and therefore means that they'll be far more open to going on a journey. So think about your market, think about your audience, and think about how many different ways can they access you at this present moment in time. And if we go all the way back to the beginning, that requires you to have absolute clarity and alignment in your story, which is now why you do what you do, which is your greatest weapon and is a huge superpower that you need to own. Secondly, who you're actually now speaking to, what are their greatest problems, what are the challenges that they're currently bumping up against, what is it they tried before, how are they thinking, feeling, behaving, what do their days now currently look like, what keeps them up at night, and what's their dream outcome? What would they now love to have? What would they love to feel? Where would they now love to be that they currently don't? What's your opportunity? How do you help them get there easier, faster, in a more enjoyable way, in a bigger way, depending upon what it is that you sell? And then what is your offer? What is it actually that you now sell? How do you package that up in a way that allows them to burn as few calories as possible, that helps them understand and also allows them to see that this is a new opportunity for them and it's different to anything they've now tried before? And behind all of that, there's a level of value, or your value, sorry. And there's a level of connection, there's a level of safety, and there's a level of trust, which is actually coming back down to everything. How much does somebody now know about you? The people that you trust the most are the people that you know the most about. And that now doesn't mean you have to share your life on social media and you have to share, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you have to share every single piece. But people need to know enough about you to feel like they already know you. And I think one of the greatest compliments that somebody can now give you when they come into your world is either they already now use some of the phrases and some of the frames that you talk about and you speak about in your content, or secondly, they're like, I feel like I already know you. That is a bridge of safety that makes people feel far more confident to put their hand in the air and take one step closer to working with you in comparison to anybody else. And you need to choose your vehicle. Is that podcast? Is that Instagram stories? Is that YouTube? Is that email? How do you now want to be able to present you? That could even be offline. Some of the best results that we've now got over the course of this year is through coaches and business owners who are now actually owning and winning their community. And they're focused far more on winning their community and winning their local market than they are the internet. And recognizing that like 5, 10, 15, 20 mile proximity is so powerful, because there's nothing better than physical interaction and being able to bring people together who are like one another, who have shared values, and they can really feel that difference in energy. So choose the one vehicle that you want to attack. Think about what are the skills that I need to develop, and then allow yourself to be okay with being crap and recognizing that initially 2 people might watch it, 5 people might watch it, 10 people might watch it, but it will grow and it will evolve. You have to allow yourself to go on that journey. But those 10 people, I believe, are far more valuable than having 1,000 followers who are just there for transactional. There's not really depth. And they're just watching and consuming small little snippets of your content that actually aren't allowing them to then go any further and allow themselves the opportunity to step far more into your world, so that you can then take them on that nurture journey. You have awareness, you have value, you have offer. And whenever you think about the content that you put out to the marketplace, that's your shop window. Your value, which is the longer form, the lead magnets, the podcast, the email, the other bits and pieces I've spoken about, that's like your shop floor. Your offer is then the shop assistant who is then speaking to you, who is then building that connection, building that relationship, understanding what it is that you're currently looking for, what are the problems, what is the real kind of like buying behavior, and then allowing you to be able to go on that journey to take one step closer to getting to the counter. You need to have volume. Your shop window needs to look good enough that people are willing to stop and pay attention. You then need to have an open door, which allows people to then go into your shop and spend time in your shop, browsing, watching, learning, listening, and consuming your stuff. And then you also need to have that nurture of that shop assistant to be able to communicate and to allow that person to feel heard and understood, to then be able to make an informed decision that's best for them. And even if it isn't right then, you give them their card, or you then go away and you always come back and it's, can I speak to X person who you then previously dealt with? Everything is always in the long game. But your ecosystem and building your business ecosystem from a marketing and lead generation perspective is going to be so much more than just trying to get more views on your social media page going into 25. And if you spent more time doing that than trying to wing the internet, you would be able to have a far greater influence and impact. It's just not sexy. It doesn't make you feel like you're moving forwards necessarily, because you're not getting that instantaneous feedback loop. Number 6, the biggest killer of so many business owners is comfort. And this is a cycle that I typically see with so many people, especially coaches and business owners that get to the 5, 6, 7, 8, 10K per month mark, maybe to the 15, 20K per month mark, where they do well, they get comfortable, they go backwards, they're then forced to act. They then do well, they get comfortable, they go backwards, and then they're forced to act. And they end up revolving and not evolving because there's nothing pulling them forwards. There's not enough urgency. When you're in pain, and when your back's against the wall, and when you've lost a few clients, or things haven't gone your way, you've got bills to pay, you've got costs associated that you weren't necessarily expecting, or there's this like now real deadline that you're working towards, the way in which you perform, the way in which you operate, and the way in which you attack is completely different in comparison to when things are going well. When actually, do you know what? You are in a good spot. You are in a good space. Everything is good just now. And that requires you to be able to set new targets, new goals, and create a greater degree of urgency by setting deadlines with higher consequence and higher accountability. Because for the coaches that are now at a level of financial safety and security and stability, the biggest thing that stops them from being able to evolve and step into the next level and the next phase, if they're wanting to do so, isn't strategies, it's not tactics, it's not the thing that they think that they're missing. It's actually, there's not something that's pulling them forwards, that's big enough, that's great enough, that's forcing them to now be able to continue to act, to continue to be consistently good. And if more people did the work that they did when they were in pain to be able to get to a point of comfort, and they continue to then do that from comfort, then continually through, the transformation, the change, the opportunity would be absolutely huge. So I want you to think about, how can I create more urgency in my life? What deadlines do I want to set? What are going to be the consequences? What's going to be some accountability? And it's also being okay with owning that, and being okay with owning wanting to now be able to have more, and then recognizing and appreciating, how does that now align to your values? So what's really pulling you forwards? What's exciting you? What's going to make you get out of bed in the morning? What's going to make you attack? Because we know that pain is always going to be one of the greatest activation energies that we now have and we own, and that's always then going to be there, because I think you're always going to be running away. But what are you running towards? What's really driving you and pulling you and pushing you forwards? What is that vision that you now have? And then reverse engineering it and thinking about, who do I need to be? What are the steps I need to take? What do I need to let go of? And then, what are the actions daily that I know that I need to be able to go and embody in order for me to be able to get there? And create a higher level of accountability. So I had a great conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago who'd reached that point. And one of the biggest things we spoke about was actually, okay, going and finding and looking at the dream house that you now want to be able to go and buy. It's committing to now being able to put more money away into certain investment vehicles. It's now being able to book that holiday, take that trip, plan a client event that is now going to require X amount of capital. It might be bringing your partner into the business, retiring your parents, paying off a mortgage, being able to whatever. There's a whole host of different things that you can think of. And I think it doesn't necessarily just need to be one piece. It can be multidimensional. But having those things that you're getting after, I think, is exciting. When you're comfortable and everything's okay, there's not that same level of oomph. And I'd far rather have challenge, stress, and pressure than be bored, be complacent, and just going through the motions. Because as always, it's not about the thing, it's about the person you become in pursuit of the thing. And we're always looking to build and grow skills, build and grow capacity. I think it's recognizing and appreciating that having those things that are now driving you can actually now be a good thing. So when you're setting goals and targets, don't just play it safe. Because I'll go back to point 3 that I shared earlier on, which is, if I think and behave like I did in 2023, we'll grow and progress, but not to the level I know that I've got the potential to do so. When you are going through change, it feels hard, it feels heavy, it feels like an uphill battle. You can feel often like you're a bit lost in the abyss, but you're just rewriting the playbook. You're rewriting the story. You're developing skills that you know that your future self will thank your current self for, and you now know that you'll be able to pass those on to others when they're walking through and they're going on that journey as well, which I think is huge. Being comfortable, being able to maintain, being able to get the goalposts to stop moving are really, really, really important pieces. And actually, business owners having periods of times of maintenance, I think, are absolutely essential. But after a period of time, there needs to be that North Star. There needs to be that big problem that you want to solve. There needs to be those audacious goals that you have to and want to be able to set. And there's going to be some ego in that, but there's also going to be heart, which is centered around actually you, why you're doing it, what's driving you, and that internal battle that you're having with yourself, and allowing yourself to challenge yourself in those realms through curiosity and exploration, not just constant scarcity and fear. Number 7. At the start of this year, I was supposed to do the Great Euro Tri, which was something that myself and Mark Rhodes, a great friend who's also been on the podcast, spoke about during lockdown, which was originally cycling the length of the country from Scotland to Dover, swimming the Channel, and then running from Calais to Paris. Now, at the start of this year, I had the intentions of wanting to be able to now achieve and accomplish that goal. And once we got the visas to be able to now move to Portugal, once I realized actually what were my priorities, what were my highest values, what I was going to have to compromise and sacrifice and give up, and really where I wanted my business and my life to now be this year, it made me appreciate and realize that actually, do you know what? The Great Euro Tri is something that I want to be able to accomplish and achieve, and maybe I'll do it in a decade's time, maybe 2 decades' time. But right now, it isn't aligned. And one question that really helped me with that is, instead of thinking, how do I achieve more? Think, how do I want to live? Instead of thinking, how do I achieve more? How do I want to live? And when I asked myself that question, me having to spend 20 to 30 hours a week training, having to sacrifice my Saturdays, sacrifice the time that I would have been able to spend with Leanne, sacrifice the time and the experiences that we would have now been able to have with family, having just moved out here, being able to sacrifice elements and areas of the business that I knew I wouldn't be able to give my energy to, wasn't worth it. And whilst it would be a cool story, and whilst I could have done it, it didn't sit right with me. And there's always more, there's always bigger, there's always better, there's always somebody that's going to be doing more, achieving more, playing a bigger game, etc. But this year really for me has actually been far more centered around, how do I want to live? That comes back down to building a business your way. It's the ultimate pick and mix. It's understanding, okay, like instead of now reacting and responding to the needs of the business and everybody else and everything else and life, it's like, how am I pulling it forwards? Am I in control? Am I building this by design? And whilst you're not going to be able to have 100% of that, when you take responsibility, and I think allow yourself to be okay with having your own needs met, which has also been a huge lesson for me this year from doing a lot of work with even just reading, but especially like No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover, just allows you to appreciate actually, what are you going to say no to? What boundaries do you need to set? What do you need to let go of? Where do you need to be able to say yes to yourself even more so? What are your people-pleasing tendencies? And then allowing yourself to trust yourself enough to be able to make the decisions that are actually now congruent to you and what it is that you now want to be able to do, how you want to live, the experiences that you want to have, and what it is that you now want to be able to create. And one thing that really always sits with me is like, what would my 80-year-old self say, and what would my 8-year-old self think of me just now? And so how do I want to live has been this narrative that has helped me make far, far better decisions over the course of this year, and allows me to get clear over actually, what do I want to say yes to? What do I want to say no to? And what am I willing to compromise, not willing to compromise? And how do I want to build my business and life that aligns to me in this moment and right now? And that will change and that will evolve as I grow and I evolve and my outlook on life changes and my values shift and change. But right now, what is the absolute priority? And next to this, I actually just put this on my stories. There's a really big difference to I want that versus I want to feel that. And an example of this is, I want you to think about a time that a client has paid you, or you've had a great month in business. But as soon as that client has paid you, or you've had that great month in business, it's been met with dread, a sense of heaviness. It's felt hard. It's felt like an uphill battle, and you've almost resented it. In comparison to when you've had a month or a client who's paid you and it's felt easy, it's felt light, it's felt fun, it's felt enjoyable, you've been excited, you felt good. We're not just chasing, I want that. Having business goals, business targets, bigger months, more accolades, being able to achieve, I think are important parts of the puzzle, and we need to be able to have those things. But actually beneath that, we're actually chasing a feeling, how you want to be able to feel once you have those things. So I want that versus I want to feel that. There is a massive, massive, massive difference. So when you're setting goals and targets, it's not just, I want to double my business in 2025, or I want to be able to now work with X amount of clients, or I want to be able to speak on X stage, or whatever it might potentially be. It's like, what actually is the thing that you're really wanting to feel by being the type of person who achieves and has and accomplishes those things? Because that feeling is the most powerful thing that we're all looking for, not just the wanting it. Because if you focus on the wanting it, you'll end up building a business that you end up resenting and you end up hating, that will feel hard, it will feel heavy, and won't then actually allow and align to how you want to live. There is an opportunity for you to now be able to work with clients where it feels easy, it feels enjoyable, it feels light, it feels fun. There is an opportunity to have good record months where it's felt more effortless. It's like effortless effort. Now, don't get me wrong, there are going to be challenges, hardships, difficult times, and there's going to be shit that you're going to have to eat very much within that. And business is hard, business is challenging, and so much of business is firefighting, solving problems, and bumping up against barriers that you're then having to explore, you're having to challenge yourself, and you're having to work through. But if you can operate from that narrative of like easy, light, enjoyable, and fun, and you use that as a North Star, it allows you then to bring a completely different level of longevity, energy, and consistency to what it is that you're currently doing, which gives you a driving force and a reason to keep going when the going gets tough, in comparison to just feeling as though you're carrying the heaviest weight uphill, which is one of the biggest reasons that will stop you from being able to grow, because the thought of growing brings more pain, more challenge, more compromise, more sacrifice, and more loss, which is something that when you get to a certain level, you're not willing to do because things are okay, and that's when you end up in that comfort and that comfortable loop. Number 8, this ties into everything that I've spoken about. By growing, what are you afraid of losing? This is a question that I've asked so many of our coaches this year. By growing, what are you afraid of losing? And initially, so often people will be like, nothing. We love growth. We want to grow. But when you actually delve and you dig a little bit deeper, I've had answers like friendships, connection with my clients, freedom, time. Even their own identity and how that's associated and attached to the business based upon the work that they're now currently doing. Growing is hard. Growing requires you to let go. Growing requires you to evolve. Growing requires you to sit in the messy middle. And very much, I think Chris Williamson talks about this, like the lonely chapter, where you have to kind of let go of where you were to go on a journey, but you're not at a point and you're not at a stage yet to be able to access those new rooms, those new opportunities, those new friendships, those new connections. And you're in that in between. And you've also got nothing to show for it. You haven't been able to achieve, you've not got the success, you've not got the outward external accolades, but you're in the mess. And I think it's important to recognize that behind everything, whenever you're thinking about growing, we're always thinking about, what am I going to lose? And then I took this from Alan Soltanek, which is being able to shift that narrative and then thinking, by losing, what do you gain? By growing, what do I lose? And then by losing X, what is it that I actually now gain from that? So for example, by losing these clients, I gain more freedom and time to double down on my marketing, to repositioning my message, to then be able to attract higher quality clients that are now more aligned to where I am at this present moment in time. By losing those clients, I now have more time and more freedom to now be able to think. By, for example, Fit Health and Fitness, getting injured or going through a bout of illness, I gain perspective, appreciation, and clarity around actually what I value most, what my body can do for me, and some of the things that I've potentially taken for granted. The experience that Leanne has been through incredibly recently. By losing, what is it you gain? But every time that you're stepping into the next phase of this is what I want to accomplish, this is what I want to achieve, this is where I want to grow, this is what I want to do, I want you to think about what is it that I'm afraid of losing by having to do that, and then to question that narrative. Is that true, or is that just an assumption that you've now made? Because I see so many coaches that have grown exponentially at such a speed during COVID because they were building a business that wasn't aligned to them, that they were building it in a certain way. They've reached certain accolades and certain levels of revenue, and have now since then almost gone back the way, and they're now so afraid of growing because they didn't like the person that they became, they didn't like the life that they then had to live, and they didn't like what they had to do, and potentially the clients that they were then working with, that they now, although want to grow, the resistance that they're bumping up against is the belief that they're now going to have to do what they did previously to get back to where they were, which is not what they're willing to do. So they end up again stuck. Instead of then challenging that narrative of how do I build a business my way, what do I need to change, and recognizing and appreciating that they're lessons that are going to be invaluable, that allow you then the opportunity to appreciate more of what it is that you want to do, and what are the red flags I'm going to be aware of as I go through this journey that I know I need to avoid because I've now got that level of awareness that I didn't have previously. And when you have that realization, I think that opens you up to a different level of thinking and a different level of possibility and a different level of opportunity. Number 9. My biggest business lesson this year is just the amount of time, effort, and energy that I need to be placing and focusing my efforts into has shifted so much from where it's been before. And recognizing that if you want to be able to really win in business, you want to have the impact you want to have, you want to be able to position yourself as the go-to, you want to work with clients that you now love, and you want to be able to attain and achieve and have all the things that you now aspire to have. So much of your effort needs to be spent in the front-facing marketing, lead generation, and working on the business. Now, this is something that I've always done. It's something that I've always placed effort and energy into. But this year, especially going into the second half of this year, has made me appreciate just how much more time, effort, and energy that I need to be spending in those areas, and how I need to periodize our business very much like you would periodize your training. There needs to be clear structure, clear processes, clear strategy. There needs to be clear campaign targets. There needs to be clear metrics, and how you're then reverse engineering that across every single aspect and every single element of your marketing, your lead generation efforts. And then how does that now align into your operations, your systems, your team, your delivery, etc. Inside business, you're only ever doing one or two things. You're either growing capacity or creating capacity. Growing capacity is obviously allowing yourself to focus on front-facing, expanding, and bringing more people into your world. Creating capacity is improving your personal systems, improving your operations, your business systems, to create more space for you to now be able to grow into. And the time, effort, and energy that both of those take is a bit like building muscle and dropping body fat. You can do them, but if you want to be able to do it well, you have to be able to commit. Now, we've been able to grow and evolve at 30 to 40% per year every single year for the last 7-8 years through simultaneously combining both and being able to double down on our culture, our community, our results, our retention, our messaging, and very much just doing the fundamentals and the foundations incredibly well. This year was a moment for me that realized if I want to go to the levels that I now want to go to, have the impact that I want to be able to have, the amount of time that I need to be spending working on the business and really structuring and strategizing my marketing, my lead generation, our sales process in the same way that I would do if I was now working towards running a sub-3-hour marathon or working towards a transformation goal needs to be exactly the same. And that then allowed me to recognize where was I placing my focus, where was I placing my time, and how was I structuring my days, and being able to transform my days into themes. So instead of now just having days where I was just doing lots of different aspects and elements, when you're trying to run the business, grow the business, you're working on developing the team, coaching your clients, improving your systems, doing your marketing, the finance, all the different pieces, is then understanding, okay, Monday is very much a team development day. Tuesday and Wednesday is an in the business where I'm focused on working with our founders and focused on improving the strategies and the developmental pieces that I now know that we need to improve upon for our clients to be able to help them win. Thursday and Friday, there needs to be marketing, lead generation, and needs to be very much focused on business development, and me now spending more time looking at data, metrics, our finance, and looking at the different pieces. And then understanding like a volume, what and how much do I need to bring to those things? So for example, the month of January for us, the focus is very much on giving, is very much on positioning, is very much on now being able to get more people into our world, onto our email list, listening to the podcast, downloading our lead magnets, being able to continue to build and forge and develop stronger relationships with the marketplace. It's not about selling. We're not directly going to be putting out calls to actions. We're not going to be gearing up to have a huge ascension in growing capacity, but there's going to be a real focus on building the runway and building our market authority and the level of connection and relationships that we now have, so that we can then put ourselves in a position to then have a far greater front-facing strategy going into February. So recognizing and appreciating, well, okay, well, where do I need to be? How much time do I need to be spending? What do I need to be creating? How do I need to gear up the team? And what do we need to have in place? Allows you then to have a plan, allows you then to know what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're currently doing it, how you're marketing, what you're putting out, when you're putting it out, across what channels, what's the message, and ultimately what are the outcomes. So periodizing your business like you're periodizing your periodizing your training is going to be so important if you want to be able to really take your business to the level that you need to. And you need to spend more time sitting within that and recognizing that you then have to come away from some of the behaviors that have felt comfortable and safe, which is usually check-ins, programming, delivery. That doesn't mean you compromise that. You improve the efficiency and the quality of that, or you train and develop the team to enhance that, so that you can then spend more time working on other aspects and other areas of the company that are then helping it grow. And finally, at the founders event that we ran in October, where we had 17 of our founders come out to Portugal for 3 days, one of the biggest highlights and takeaways was allowing people and allowing them and allowing me and allowing you to own your success. Own actually what it is that you want, and be okay with outshining others, and being okay with recognizing that everybody else's standards aren't your standards, and it's okay to want more. It's okay to want better. It's okay to want bigger. There's nothing wrong with that. And even me, as an example, have spent a lot of time shying away from actually owning what it is that I want, through fear of judgment, through fear of opinion, through fear of coming across greedy, through fear of a whole host of things, losing friendships, relationships, what people are going to think of me. But just appreciating that not everybody has to get it. And you have to be okay with being a bit of a lone wolf initially, and being able to really own what it is that you want to be able to do, and not then trying to spend your time having to convince others why you're wanting to do that. Only you need to understand. And that comes back down to you having your own needs met, understanding what's important to you, and being okay with going out, attacking, compromising, sacrificing, being okay with letting go. And realizing as well that self-handicapping is one of your biggest inhibitors that will stop you from being able to move forwards, which is you just sabotaging your own success ahead of time. Whether that's now externally, internally, whether that's now through behaviors, blaming others, not taking responsibility, through fear of actually being able to be successful. So moving into 25, own what it is that you want. Own that level of success. Own who you are, what it is that you want to do, why you want to build what you want to build, and recognize and realize that if you keep dignity in check, it's aligned to you, your values, what's important to you, and it allows you to really express yourself in the way in which you now want to, then the people that are going to come with you are going to come with you, and the ones that aren't, and that's okay. You're not there to change minds, you're simply there to plant seeds. So owning success and owning what you've already been able to accomplish, attain, and achieve, and just not normalizing your norms and just casting it off and throwing it away because it's not where you want it to be, or you're not as far ahead as you could now be, or somebody is doing bigger or better than you. I think actually being able to sit in that and sit within those bright spots and realize that it's you that's being able to attain and achieve those things, which has come through work, courage, choosing the path that's less trodden on, and being able to make decisions and sacrifices that other people now haven't made, and recognizing that it's you who's done that. And other people want that. They want to know what you've done, how you've done it, what you've attained, what you've achieved. The greatest brands in the world sell something that you're not, something you can't access, something that you don't have. Influencers sell a lifestyle that the majority of us can't have and don't have access to. So it's being okay with being able to sell something that others aren't, something they don't have, something they don't have access to. And then the secret sauce is obviously how you've then been able to get from A to B. What's been your methodology, your process, your principles, your frameworks? And then how can you help people have the platform that gives them hope, that helps them take that next step? So I hope you've been able to take away something of value, and there's been some insights that will carry you forth. If there has been something of value, I'd absolutely love to know. Drop me a message on Instagram. And also, if you want to find out how you're currently performing and what it is that you need to do going into 2025 to build a high performance business, go and click the link on my bio on my Instagram or in the show notes. And I've put together a high performance business success test. It's 20 questions. It will take you no longer than 2 minutes to do. Off the back of that, you will get a score. You'll also then get downloadable PDFs, trainings, guides, access, info, strategies that will help you then navigate your exact next moves. That includes a 30-day lead generation plan, a content plan, a sales process, how to build your offer, and a whole host of other things. It's completely free. All it requires is your email address. If you want to now be able to go and find out where you're surviving, where you're thriving, and where you are right now as a business owner, hit the link in the show notes, go to my Instagram and go and take that test and go and give yourself the platform and the opportunity to recognize what are the limiting factors that are stopping you from being able to now go and build the business and build the life that you now know that you want to, that's done on your terms and is done in your way. Until next time, I'll speak to you soon.